Hi everyone, Avi Blumenstiel here, Managing Partner of Vecchio Blumenstiel PLLC. Welcome to our ongoing series of frequently asked questions about Texas probate, wills, trusts, and estate law. In this video, we're going to talk about a common situation that comes up a lot and causes a lot of stress and confusion to families when they've lost a loved one. And as we're going to see, a lot of this stress and confusion is oftentimes unnecessary. Now, it's very common when a loved one dies that they die owing debt, whether it's credit card, medical, or mortgage debt. And shortly after the funeral, the surviving family starts getting calls from bill collectors, or they'll get collection notices in the mail saying, hey, the person owed us money at the time of their death, and you're the surviving family, so this debt's got to get paid, you need to pay up. The family in that situation usually feels pressure, and they feel responsible for those debts. And they come to the conclusion sometimes that there's no point in probating the estate because there's just so much debt that if we probate it, there's not going to be any assets left for the family, and it's kind of a meaningless exercise. This is something of a force mind trick used by debt collectors to convince the family that they're responsible for the debts of the deceased person. And that's just simply not true. There's a body of law in Texas that governs very strictly how a decedent's debts are to be paid upon their death. And this body of law works to both govern how the claims against the estate are settled and paid, but it also strives to protect and preserve certain property and assets for the decedent's heirs. Now, under these laws, the heirs and family of the deceased person are not responsible to pay the deceased person's debt. You do not have to pay out of your pocket the debts of a relative who has died. You're not responsible for them. The payment for the decedent's debts only comes out of the assets and money that the deceased person owned at the time of their death. Moreover, this body of law also dictates that the decedent's debts are only paid out of certain types of assets and certain types of funds that the decedent had at the time of their death. Other types of funds are beyond the touch of creditors. I'll give you an example. Let's say that a mother dies having a life insurance policy, and that life insurance policy leaves $25,000 to her daughter. Creditors then come and they say, hey, when your mother died, she owed us $75,000. They can only look at the property the mother had in her estate. They cannot touch the life insurance proceeds that were left to the daughter. Those are beyond the reach of the creditors. Those are protected property. They're not even considered probate property. They're not even part of the mother's estate. So this body of law that works to settle these claims and also detail what assets are protected for the family, what is this body of law called? Well, that's the Texas probate laws. This is part of what the probate laws accomplish. A probate proceeding is really divided into two sections. In the first section, if there's a will, we seek to have the will proven and admitted to probate and get an executor appointed. If there is no will, then we're going to seek to have a determination of heirship to identify the heirs of the estate and appoint an administrator over the estate. In the second stage of probate, whether or not there's a will, the second stage always works the same, but in the second stage of probate, the goal is to gather the deceased person's property, identify and settle the claims against the estate, and then distribute the remaining property and the remaining assets to the decedent's heirs or to the beneficiary of their will. Now, this is not a free-for-all. The second stage, the claims process, is not a free-for-all. There's a specific order and process by which creditors have to submit their claims to the estate, and they have to do so according to a specific schedule. And if they fail to do it according to that schedule, then their claims may be barred forever. Furthermore, these laws may work to set aside a portion of the estate for a surviving spouse or for one of the decedent's children, and then that portion of the estate is also beyond the reach of creditors. The net result of the probate laws and how they govern the claims process is that a substantial amount of the decedent's debt is either written off or reduced, and a substantial amount of the decedent's assets are preserved for the deceased person's family. To get the benefits of these laws, however, it's important to have the estate probated. Now, the laws that govern the claims process in probate are very complicated and they're very detailed. And there's a risk of loss of estate assets if they're not applied correctly or understood thoroughly. This is one of the many reasons why, when it comes to probate, Texas law requires that an administrator or an executor be advised and represented by a Texas attorney. This is one of the few areas of law here in Texas that a person cannot do themselves, and the Texas law requires that they hire an attorney to assist with. Now, if you've lost a loved one who's passed away, and especially if they owe debts at the time of their death, call us to discuss what your options are. Don't just assume that the situation is beyond hope because they owe debt. Don't assume that you or any of the family has any obligation to pay the decedent's debts. Texas has laws to help you, and we know those laws well. So please give us a call. We'd be happy to talk to you and find a solution that's right for you in your circumstances. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.